Hey team, how are you? It's been a few weeks since I've done a video. Hopefully you can see me and hear me okay. Apologies for that sound. Let me turn that off. So here's the setup for this. The last 9 weeks, I've been doing a video or a series of videos on personal development. The context of that is that over the last year, things have been pretty ordinary and pretty challenging for a lot of people. And it's been asking a lot of questions. I don't know what questions you've been asking yourself or have been asked of you, but in this 9 weeks, what I'm aiming to do is to answer some of those questions for you and to give you a way of thinking about how to reset and move forward. For those of you who are on my social media groups or are on Facebook, LinkedIn, or on my email list, you will have seen the way these 9 weeks all fit together. I'm going to review some of the materials shortly, and then what I'm going to do is put together an overall framework for how you might move forward given the ideas I've introduced to you. So it sort of brings everything together and helps you make sense of it. You ready to go? All right, let's do this. Okay, so here's a little bit about... let me first of all just talk to you a bit about what we've done so far. So this is what we're going to cover today. Before we do that, let's go right to the start. Okay. Here's what I wanted to achieve. I wanted to ask the question of who am I as a person and a leader, given what's happened in the pandemic, and not just that, but whoops, I don't know why that turned like that, but anyway, well, doing it again. Apologies. Keeps you on your toes. What I wanted to ask was those key questions. Who are you? What are you about? And how do you want to move forward? And I've covered 9 things, a model to understand yourself and others, the illusion of control, values, purpose, authenticity, responsibility, presence, significance, gratitude. And what I'm going to do today is this self-development framework. So just if you haven't seen this before, what I put forward in the first session was this idea that we are not our minds. And in fact, we're not our bodies. We are the consciousness that sits in between those two things and brings that all together. And the more that you can separate yourself from your thinking, but be aware of your body, often that creates a much better way of living. That consciousness part of you is the awareness. It's the part of you that never changes. And, the more we get, I guess, really distracted, connected, and I guess overwhelmed by our thinking, the more we can suffer. And that's not what I want. So what I'm putting forward in that first week was an idea of thinking differently about who we are, that we're without awareness, we are not our thinking. In the second week, I talked about the illusion of control, the idea that the nature of that we were actually put here with the purpose of finding a way through the impermanence of life, which is that as soon as we feel like we've hit one milestone in our lives and achieved something, things change. And they keep asking those questions of who are we, what are we here to do? And in that gives us a chance to find that center, to go home, if you like, and find that part of who we are that allows us to feel calm and centered and calm and centered and connected, right? So that was what that was all about. The third bit took that to the next level and said, okay, so the way we do that is at certain times in our lives, we want to find out what gives us meaning, what gives us purpose, what our values are all about. And I gave you a couple of, for those that want to check, you can go back, and I gave you a couple of frameworks to be able to do that and think about that. And I guess reflected on the idea that over time, values change. The fourth one was this idea of how authenticity, that question of our identity, can get really rigid. And often what that does is our egos inside of us now thinking that it wants to protect us from developing, it wants to protect us from growing, it wants to protect us from moving forward. And if you've got a real awareness of that, you can see that over time, yourself and who you are does evolve. And it's about connecting with who you are, but also being open to that change as it comes. Number 5 was about responsibility and how you respond when you can't control things. Do you respond above the line with responsibility, accountability, and ownership, or do you blame, make excuses, and deny that those things are happening to you? And we all do that sometimes, but this is a really good reminder of that above the line or below the line. Okay. 6th was then we covered this idea of presence. So this is foundational. This is fundamental. Probably the most important quality in a life's work for a leader is being able to be in the moment, right? And this is about directing our attention to what we're doing right now, not directing our attention to our thinking or the past or the present. If you can do this really well, it's a foundational shift in your attention, focus, and energy. Number 7 was about significance. This is this sense of, who we are and who we're becoming, and this sense of feeling important and doing something meaningful. And the main message here was that we define significance for ourselves and don't get caught up into what other people's definition of significance is. Number 8, another foundational practice around gratitude, being grateful for what you have rather than thinking about lack and what you don't have. That's that. And then that brings us to today. So what I'm trying to share today is an idea of how do you bring all this together? Now, the traditional development framework. So if you go to an education institution, it's a little bit like a machine, right? So I'm just going to draw this for you, which is the machine-like methodology says that if you take knowledge A and apply it repeatably in B context and probably C context, and you repeat that over and over again, that is learning. And that is skill development. And I agree when it comes to the skills of work, the knowledge required of work. But when it comes to self-development, things are a little bit different. Okay, it's not as mechanical. And what we're aiming for with self-development is that over time that we struggle and things are hard, and we're making attempts to put new habits in place. And this could take up to, 60 to 90 days to reverse engineer some of the habits we've put in place. And then what happens here is that often what we do is we reach a point where we break through. Now, breakthrough isn't about the ego. Okay, that's about saying that this, whatever I've been working on, is I have to stop working on it because I've arrived. What it means is that what the thing that you've been working on, which has become a manual process, and is now becoming an automatic process. And rather because something that you are conscious of, you're now becoming, it's starting to move into your subconscious. So what I'm sharing here is a way for that to happen when it comes to the question of developing yourself and some of these habits that I've talked about above, right? So here is, let's just actually move this down. Sorry, I should have done this earlier so you can. There we go. That gives us a bit of space. So if we think about this idea of we want you to break through and we want you to move from, rather than this feeling like manual and hard, to automatic and easy. And rather this being something in your conscious, it's moving to something in your subconscious. So becoming a, if you like, a life habit. Now, what I would recommend is that you take it in sort of 3 steps. Step 1 is about putting new foundations in place. And if you think about the things that I spoke about, you know, that really the foundational things are about attention. They're about bringing your attention rather than from your mind into the moment. And rather from the past and the present, sorry, the past and the future. That's his future. Let's do it. Into the present moment. Okay. And the second, then, you know, I would develop a gratitude practice. We talked about sort of the, you know, 1, 2, 3 things that you're grateful for every day and develop that thinking. And these start to become habits. Once you've worked on those for, you know, most people say to, you know, sort of 21 to 30 days. And as those things start to become subconscious, you can go then into thinking about the deeper topics that I've talked about. Significance, the illusion of control, impermanence. And the deeper topics, what they often do is they give you a deeper understanding, and you can kind of go beyond the rational. So you see a deeper, you know, you see a purpose, which increases your commitment. Okay. Now, you can apply this to anything you want to learn, right? Which is, we look at some of the foundational ideas first, putting some habits and practices in place. And then step 2, we want to go a bit deeper in our understanding to really then cement these as a way of living. The third thing is we continue this, you know, for that up to a 60-day period, whatever works for you, so that this way of living becomes, and thinking becomes, simple and automatic. Okay. So just to review this, we have covered 9 topics. Let me just stop sharing now. We've covered 9 topics on self-development, personal development over the last 9 weeks. I hope you followed along and loved it. This last session has been about giving you an expectation of the steps you take to create change in your life and how you do personal development. It's all about moving from manual to automatic, and from conscious to subconscious, which can take up to 60, 90 days, sometimes for a year, to change these habits. I've given you a framework to put some foundational elements in place, then to go deeper in your understanding, and then to move these into a way of living over time. Hope that's been useful for you. The next series I'm going to do is on leadership skills for the future. So those human skills that we're going to need as we face the big, you know, existential threats of climate change, and the digital skills we're going to need when robotics and automation start to change the way business is done. That's what I'm going to be addressing next. I hope this has been really useful for you, and I'll take care, and I'll talk to you soon.